Thank you all so much for coming for the rollout of the County Executive's FY26 recommended budget. Before we get started with the County Executive, I want to take a moment to introduce some of the elected officials who are here. From the Montgomery County Board of Education, President Julie Yang. And then board members Rita Montoya and Laura Stewart. And of course, for his very first budget presentation, our new superintendent, Dr. Thomas Taylor. An interesting little factoid, this is the first time in Montgomery County history that both the county executive and the superintendent of the public schools are actually graduates of the Montgomery County Public Schools. So, Einstein and BCC between the two of them, right? And then also our elected sheriff, Max Wee, is here. There are a variety of executive branch department heads who are here. We won't go through them all, but if you would all stand so the press could see. But thank you all for your continued work, and a special shout out to the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, Jenny Bryant. She packed the room to get applause. So, and a special round of applause and thank you to all of the staff in the Office of Management and Budget for their work in pulling this together. And of course, the other side of the budget would not be complete without the revenues, and so our Director of our Department of Finance, Mike Coveyou. And a special shout out to all the finance staff that are here. And of course, all of the departmental staff who help put together the budget each and every year. It wouldn't happen without you, so give yourself a round of applause too. So with that, I will now very happily introduce myself. I don't think I said that. My name is Rich Madalino, and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of the county government. And it's my honor now to introduce our County Executive, Mark Elrich, for his presentation about our recommended budget. Mark.
So thank you all for coming here this morning. Before I start with the slides, I'll say this is probably maybe the most difficult budget that we've had to deal with. The hardest one before this was the one I walked into, where in the 2 days after I was in office, I was told cut 40 or 45 million out of the budget because we didn't have the revenues. And 3 months later was, take another 50 million out of your budget. And that was for current year and then the next year. And so that was hard because I spent a weekend going through budget line by line and just putting lines through things because it didn't fit anymore, or cutting the numbers. And, you know, since I don't have a running calculator in my brain, I had to do multiple iterations of that before I got to a number. This is a time when I think we kind of did some of the same thing. We started out and we could not fund everything that we wanted to fund. There are requests that people made that will not appear in the budget, and I didn't see things I didn't think were legitimate, but we are deeply constrained, I think everybody knows, by resources. And the federal government has not been a friend. And the shrinking of the federal government and the things that they're not willing to do become things that we have to do. And one of the things I've tried to avoid is to not get us into a downward spiral. I mean, a lot of people look at the cuts and say, well, gee, we better make cuts. And pretty soon you're no longer doing the things that make Montgomery County, Montgomery County. And it not only doesn't feel right, but it's not going to play out well in the long run. And we have to play this game for the long run. So this is as much of a continuity of services budget as we can create, with some enhancements where we saw the opportunity to do that, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to be very careful this year. I will say that, and I give a lot of credit to Rich and my finance team, we've had amazing resources. We continue to exceed the expectations for how much our reserves are going to be. So we have not, during the course of years, said every time we see money, let's go spend it. we've been using it to build up and give us cushion for the next budget. And so this budget reflects more resources than we originally planned in terms of reserves. And that has made this, I think, a little bit easier. If we had finished the way we thought we'd finished, we'd have even less flexibility. So I feel like our team has done a really good job of managing the budget and not saying, gee, let's go party now because the money's appeared. We've known always that next year there's no telling exactly what's going to happen. And this year is especially difficult because not only do we have the federal cuts, which will be real. Our people are not getting grants for things they thought they were going to get grants. But we have total uncertainty at the state. And so what you're going to see in this budget is not the final budget. We have to present a budget by the 15th. We're meeting our obligation. But at this moment, the variability in state revenues for us is between $0 and $75 million to the plus side. And the variability in state costs to us is between $22 million on the low side to possibly close to $60 million on the high side. So it's not possible to close this out until the legislature closes its budget out. So we've told the council today when we presented earlier that once we know what the tax revenues are and what the new obligations that are being loaded on the county are, we'll be back to the council with renovations. Hopefully they do this at sine die, end of the first week in April, and we would be back a week later with whatever adjustments we need to make. So I just wanted to kind of preface those things so people have an understanding of what we've been struggling with. And I want to also talk just quickly, because you're going to see a tax increase in here, to remind people that the Trump budget for our residents is going to result in tax decreases. And if you think about it as a whole, and the governor's budget for many people involves tax decreases. Decreases in taxes are being accompanied by shifts in responsibility. The federal government's not going to do what it's going to do. It comes to us. The state is not going to do some of the things it was going to do. That responsibility comes to us. There's no way for us in the face of that to not raise taxes. But collectively, between the state and the federal government, it may not make much of a difference to people what their total tax bill is, and it may mean for us that our residents aren't spending more money on taxes net than they were spending before. So we're a little, we're trying to take a broader perspective on this. I'm not happy with what the federal government is doing. On the other hand, there is some freedom in getting the ability to raise revenues locally and make decisions where you're not dependent on a federal decision and a federal process or a state decision and a state process. I mean, anybody in the department who's ever tried to go through either the state or federal government to get money can tell you the amount of time and energy that's spent, where if it was our money, we'd be saying this is a priority, this is what we're going to do, and we could act on it. So maybe there's a silver lining in here that if some things shift to us, we're able to more effectively manage things going forward than we are under the current structure. But I do wish the federal money were there. I'm not happy about having to walk away from that. So the other thing I'm going to say about the tax increase is that when you see the numbers, Montgomery County remains the cheapest state in the D.C. region. It's the best way to say it. You come here, you want to live here, you expect, the things that come with the date, you want to be happy. This county will have the lowest tax rate on property of any jurisdiction except D.C. And some of you are going to say, why is D.C. cheaper? D.C. is cheaper because their commercial property tax rate is $1.89 on property over $10 million, $1.77 on property between $5 million and $10 million, and $1.65 on property under $5 million. So they are raising a ton of money from the commercial sector, which allows them to offset more residential taxes. Trust me, if I had their tax program, county residents would be paying 85 cents too, but we don't have that. But I just want to point out that for all the movement we're making, the other jurisdictions around us will all be higher. So if somebody says they're going to go to Frederick County, are they going to go there for $1.11 taxes? Or they're going to go to Howard County. Taxes there are $1.33. So we'll be at $1.06. So keep that in mind when you think about the taxes. It's not just competitive. It's not just Montgomery County's taxes, but what does our competition look like? And, you know, for years, this county has thought it would win a race with Virginia for economic development by being the cheapest state in the room. We lost, you know, we are the cheapest state in the room. We have none of the economic development they've got. Virginia took a different path. They opted for being more expensive, but with more expensive, they invested money in infrastructure. That attracted the business community, and they've eaten our lunch despite, in Tyson's Corner, having to pay as a developer 50% more than you would pay in Montgomery County. So you all need to know that, because you're going to be talking to people out there, and they talk about, well, you're raising your taxes, aren't you worried about Virginia? If you're commercial and property in Virginia, you made a choice of quality, not price, to go to Virginia. We need to offer the same quality so we can compete, because if being cheap was the path to victory, we'd have won a long time ago. So let's start the fun slides. You're going to see the largest investment in the county contribution to the public schools. This budget shows $250 million increase. That, and along with the state funding that we know about right now, we get the school budget funded as the superintendent submitted it. The surplus, the extra ask that the board asked for, we don't know whether that's going to materialize or not. We don't know whether the cost of some of the expansions is going to, because the House has put money back in the blueprint, we don't know whether that's going to be covered by the state or if it's going to be shifted to the county. On the big thing, we don't know whether the state's going to shift $0 in teacher pensions, $21 million, which was in the governor's budget, or $42 million, which is what was recommended by one of the House committees. So we're going back to funding the assumptions of the superintendent's budget, and with what the other things we're proposing, you will have the flexibility of addressing whatever the state adds, and hopefully they give us the income tax, the $75 million in income tax the governor proposed, and that will change the calculations and how we do this, which is why we're going to present revisions, and it'll make a difference in whether we need the 3.5-cent tax increase we're asking for, or whether it can be smaller. So a lot of stuff is in flux, and so you'll know more about this probably on April 14th, which will give us a week after this, with the state's finished with it. Other stuff in this budget: new public safety measures, ride-on fares go free, necessary tax rate to fund schools, continuing services budget. Most of what people are going to see in this budget is continuing services. There are not a lot of enhancements for services, but we were able to maintain services. We do continue, well, I'll get to that later. And we do have, like I said, the budget amendments will come when we see what the state does. Our reserves right now are left at 11.2%. With the tax increase, and that gives us the flexibility to make decisions. We can pull that money out of what we thought was going to be in reserves, so we've got room to move around. And in the best case scenario, maybe we leave it at 11.2 because we find ways of balancing the budget, and that gives us a little bit more cushion to deal with the federal uncertainty that we're certainly going to be dealing with. Next. State budget shortfall has been significant. I think, you know, we've all heard about the $3 billion they're trying to deal with. There's no agreement on any revenue package to close that gap. They're obviously looking at major cuts. I think you've all heard about the cuts proposed to social services and to the disability community and other cuts in the budget. We have no idea what's going to survive or what's not going to survive, but it's a pressure on us because it certainly has prohibited them from providing all the revenue that we could use, and certainly their transportation budget is shot. And if we're looking for the state to build transportation in Montgomery County, we'll be looking for a long time. You could stand on the track, the train will never hit you. It's not happening. Again, the federal policy changes, revenue volatility, particularly with what we're going to see with income tax. Our transfer and recordation taxes have never recovered, and this could be another bad year because of a lot of federal employees lose jobs. The demand for housing may certainly decline. You may have people looking for buyers, because if there aren't federal jobs here, you might be a federal employee wanting to sell your house, but you're not going to sell it to another federal employee, which is kind of like what we relied on in previous years. People could move and come, but if these jobs are there to be filled, they're not there now. We've got the usual cost drivers, inflation, rising wages, service costs and construction costs, and we also have seen the demand in services increase. for housing, social programs, and transportation services, and the need to increase public safety investment. And so you'll find some of these things addressed in here, despite being basically the same services budget. We have made some enhancements where we needed to make enhancements. Budget's balanced, we have to do it. We have $16.8 million in targeted program reductions inside our budget. And we had $28 million, almost $29 million in vacancy savings. The property tax increase is 3.5 cents, but we buffer it for residents by increasing the ITOC 25% to $860. That's the tax credit you see on your tax bill. So if you own a home valued around $500,000, $495, but who's counting? At $495 or less, you will either see no tax increase or you'll see slight tax decrease. Houses over that will see an increase, but they will still get the enlarged ITOC, so it will not be a 3.5% increase effectively. It will be lower than that because the ITOC applies to their property as well. So there will be some tax increase that'll take it to a 1.0605. Why we count that last number, I don't know. So there will be some homeowner relief. We're trying to take a progressive approach to taxation. Other jurisdictions have the ability to tax residential and commercial property differently. The state of Maryland does not allow that for counties, though it allows it for municipalities. Pete, you know, you're in Kensington. So we don't have the flexibility to do that here. So the ITOC is the only tool we have to introduce progressivity into the property tax. We also don't have the ability to introduce that into the income tax, and we're kind of waiting. There's a bill in the state legislature that would give the counties the ability to do that as well. But we could use those tools to try to make the tax system fairer. But if we didn't raise these taxes, and assuming the state remains an absent player, then we'd be looking at drastic cuts in services. This is yields about $58 million in revenue. Without that, you take that out of our budget, and a whole bunch of stuff disappears out of the budget. This is a chart. This is one of my favorite charts, and this has been updated. So you can see here, this is Montgomery County on the left. Notice that the blue and yellow lines are the same. That's orange, I guess. Okay, blue and orange lines are the same. And they're also the lowest lines in this chart for orange, and the second lowest for blue. The lowest is DC at the far right, and the highest for commercial property is DC on the far right. But you can see Frederick, Fairfax, Howard County, and Prince George's County, all, and I said Fairfax, all above Montgomery County's rates, even after this tax increase. Next. Investments in K-12 education and services for youth. The MCBS total budget is $3.62 billion. It's an unprecedented requested increase from the Superintendent and Board of Education. It funds negotiated compensation agreements, as our budget also funds negotiated compensation agreements. It increases the number of special education teachers, and this is urgently needed because the school system is far out of whack with standards for special education ratio of teachers to students. It's a liability, literally a liability in the dollar sense, but it's also is impacting education. These children are not in the right classrooms. A lot of disruption you hear from parents about what they're seeing in classrooms because kids who should be getting specialized services aren't getting those services, and it's creating a lot of pressure in classrooms, and it doesn't need to be that way. So we're trying to make it possible for them to fund this need. It also increases school security. Per pupil funding grows by $1,600, almost $1,700, and it exceeds the state maintenance of effort by over $256 million, which the county has been over the state maintenance of effort probably every year for the last God knows how many years. We've never tried to hold ourselves to that. We've always tried to set a higher standard for our school system than what some other school systems set. But all this, none of the end result will change, but how the money gets mixed up is going to change pending final resolution by the legislature. Next. This is, I like this slide because it kind of shows back in FY10, adjusted for inflation, total spending with state money would have been about $23,500. And then you can see that dotted line just drops. And that's the recession where it goes, takes that big dip down, and it never recovers. Since I've been county executive, I've been putting a lot more money into the schools. We're now at about only $800 below where we were in 2010. A year ago, it was about $2,000 below, and so we've made steady progress in that direction. In terms of county funding, this isn't all state money that's going to make this happen. You can see the county money is now about $2,000 less than where we were at the peak, but it was shortly ago $3,000 less than it was at the peak. So we continue to work away at that gap. And if I had the other chart, which I don't, if you looked at Montgomery County, which used to fund schools more than anybody else in the state of Maryland, we've fallen to 4th or 5th on that in our per pupil spending. So anybody who thinks you can do the same job with less money while cutting teachers and resources in classrooms, you should not be surprised by outcomes that disappoint sometimes. We need to maintain the investments at a level that'll make the school system successful. Next, we've put additional investments into services. Children and youth, we've got school health services, $1.7 million. 1.5 is blueprint required nurses, which is a county bill, even though it's required by the state. We've expanded linkages to learning, Excel Beyond the Bill, $4 million for early care and education initiative to continue ongoing services and programs. We expanded food-based programs to 20 additional schools, which kind of goes to the depth of the need for food in this county. And we are adding $65,000 to try to recruit bilingual therapists. The problem is twofold. One is, competitive pricing, but the other problem, if you look at who's in college and who's in these programs, it is not as diverse as our county. You're pulling from a primarily white group of college students and trying to fill really serious needs to have diversity. The diversity in teachers in college is not as diverse as the population, and that's one of the challenges we face. Public safety investments, I guess first I say I love our new public safety team. They have done really, I think, important things. Our fire and rescue enhancements are moving forward. We've added a position for public education and more civilian educators for high school cadet programs. We are working very hard to diversify our workforce in the fire department, and we're working to make sure that we've got coverage, and I've got to give Corey a lot of credit. You have a lot of trust in the people in the department. I hear from both the firefighters as well as residents that they are comfortable with your leadership, particularly in tackling changes we may have to make. So I want to thank you. You've been very engaged with the community and with the professionals who make your job possible, and that's a good thing. Trust with both the professional and volunteer, I think, is really important. So hand for you. And I have, great things to say about the police department. With the drone as a first responder program, it's not only a big hit, it's a big benefit. And particularly when you are short-staffed, the ability to get a drone to on-site in a matter of seconds compared to waiting for somebody in a car to go through traffic in downtown Silver Spring or Bethesda and get there has been a big enhancement. Part of this is being more effective at stopping or at least catching people who commit crimes. The other part is sending a message to people who might think that coming to Montgomery County is an easy place to commit a crime. We are trying to very publicly make this more difficult. You go into Silver Spring, you see cameras on the streets. You know that there's a drone program. You know they can get to your car and follow your car. They can identify you getting on a bus. One of the great stories is following somebody to a bus. They knew what bus it was. Tell the police to go to the next bus stop, meet the person at the bus stop, and take them off. It's kind of cool, and it's a real powerful tool. But I'll tell you a good story. It's not an enforcement story, but they got a call for somebody who they thought was waving. Somebody said this person's waving a gun in a public place, and the police were dispatched. I think we all know that if you're dispatched to a place where you think somebody has a gun and they're waving it openly, the police are going to take a very cautious and sometimes perhaps overly cautious approach how they deal with that person. The drone got there first and said it wasn't a gun, it was a camera. The police response was completely different. it saved something that could have gone really south, and it kept that from happening. And those are the kind of things, the stories you don't read about. It's not like you caught the bad guy, but sometimes you keep things from going in the wrong direction. And I'm really, I love this program. We're expanding it, and the residents like it. We've put all the protections in for privacy so that people don't have to worry about this being used as a spy drone. As gotten ACLU approval, which is not an easy thing to do when you're doing surveillance. So they're doing something right. So I give this department a lot of credit for what they're doing. We're going to enhance security at Progress Place, which has been a major problem for us, and we're going to put additional security staffing in there because they're pulling police out of the district there, and it's too many police being drawn to one place. And we're better off to fund it with putting special security in there. We've got new digital forensic software, and this is a warning for everybody. We're launching the Speed on Green, and this is what it means. You ever go up to a light and you're watching it, it's changing, you watch that timer going down, and you're like I am, I'm looking like, okay, when it hits 0, the light's going to switch. So I'm sure somebody occasionally steps on the gas pedal and tries to get through the cross line before it goes red, because if you cross the line after it turns red, you're going to get this nice little automated ticket. You speed up, you exceed the speed limit, then you enter an intersection where people are jumping to move as soon as their light turns green, and accidents happen. So we're all, I'm using the word we're all going to have to realize when we get close to a light, you're not going to be able to speed through that light above the speed limit without triggering the ticket. So there'll be some public education out there so people know their behavior has to change, but I just wanted to say it here, behavior will have to change. And I'm not asking anybody to raise their hands and say that's me. Okay. We continue to make more public safety investments, corrections and rehabilitation, and we've now reopened the bakery program. This is, to me, the most special thing about the jail, because we actually are training people in a job area where they can actually leave the jail and actually wind up getting a job, and people get recruited, and it's exciting to be able to do that. One of the best things about, I think, our criminal justice system here is the effort to rehabilitate and help people reenter society. Not like I'm going to punish you, I'm going to make you miserable for 6 months or a year, and I'm going to give you a criminal record, and then good luck going out into society and getting a job. We do a lot of work to try to help people recover and to find a path back to work, and I'm really proud of the department for doing that. We're doing a lot of work with their emergency management, Homeland Security, and we continue we're adding $300,000 more to the security grant for institutions that may be at risk of violence from people who are mentally unbalanced. Affordable housing initiatives, record amount, $312 million. The Housing Initiative Fund is $59.8 million, funds a lot of important programs you can see on the chart there. Capital funding goes to $108.9 million, $107 million for affordable housing acquisition and preservation, and $1.9 million for troubled and distressed condominium communities. So co-op, common ownership communities. So I'm excited about that. We continue to make progress, and if you ever get curious, you can go to the Housing Department's page. There is a list of what we're funding and the projects that are being built, and it's pretty impressive. I don't think anybody's built more housing than we have, and that's something that I'm really happy with, and the council's been supportive, so arguments to get money have been not really arguments. It's a good thing. Support for individual and families, we continue. We've got $6.9 million in short-term housing and the resolution program, SHARP, and that is cheaper than our putting people in hotels, and we've got to find a solution to that problem. Parenthetically, Rabia and I have met with a couple. Rabia's our DPS person, have met with a couple of builders companies that produce manufactured housing. There are units we could buy for the price of what we spend to keep somebody in a hotel for a year. So we're looking aggressively at this. The easy part now is finding it, and the price points are attractive. The hard part is finding a neighborhood that wants it. And we talked to the council today, but everybody's going to have to take a deep breath and say this responsibility has to be shared across the whole county. You can't just do it in a few areas. Everybody has to take a portion of it if you want to avoid an overconcentration of homelessness in any one area. So we're going to continue to work on that. We've got money for eviction prevention. All these things we're doing without the support of the federal government anymore. So we continue to work at this. And we're making investments in healthcare. Montgomery Cares clinics are getting $2.2 million. We've got a $300,000 increase in dental services in the East County, and $722,000 for HIV/AIDS still with us and still a serious problem, and $148 million to maintain senior nutrition program at the Silver Spring Aquatic Recreation Center. Transit and transportation, we're going to free ride-on. The cost of enforcement and is not worth the pain, and we have such a level of fare evasion that we would have to spend $19 million to update our fare boxes. That's a have to do if we're going to continue to work with Metro. And if you're not collecting fares, and most people are avoiding fares, you might as well go to zero and avoid the collection price and avoid the fare box price, unless you're willing to enforce. And enforcement would be ugly. You'd wind up ticketing people with least ability to pay and then saying, and now you've got a ticket to pay. There's not an appetite for that level of enforcement, and so we're going to make it free. And we're going to expand Flash Bus Rapid Transit with Howard County. We're not paying for the Howard County piece. Howard County's in on this. There's a big deal if you're on the east side of the county because 29 is jammed to traffic coming from the north. This gets us a connection all the way from Howard County down into Silver Spring. And that's a big deal for us, so I'm excited about that. Our team continues to electrify the ride-on fleet. We got a solar microgrid project at Gaithersburg Bus Depot, and we're doing the work on bus shelter maintenance. And we don't mention it, we got that big project over in Shady Grove where we are going to get the buses off this property, which we could then sell for several tens of millions of dollars and help offset the cost of building a new facility, which is a good thing. And then we're going to work with the school system to get a bunch of buses onto the high schools so we don't have to build another incredibly expensive slab of concrete with a facility on it. So we need to partner together on this, and it's in the school's interest as much as ours for us to spend as little money as possible on things that don't directly contribute to what we're trying to do as a mission. So building another full-fledged facility, I do not want to do. I got better uses for the money. We continue with our climate and environmental initiatives. Despite the federal government, we're not retreating on anything. This is true for climate and environment. We're still going to say climate change. We're going to talk about social justice. We're going to recognize inequalities at the community level. Since they're not going to be giving us any money, they don't have much to say about what we do. So we're going to keep doing the things we think are right. And so we're going to make progress. We've got total funding of almost $380 million in operating capital. We're working on redoing our entire material recovery, this place at Shady Grove and then the incinerator. We have opportunities to recover more of the waste and resell it. I'm a big believer in monetizing what's in the waste stream, and we can do that. We're going to shut down the incinerator, which is not an environmentally good thing, and we believe that it's going to take a few years, but it's important to get it done. We've got money for outreach on the plastic bag ban and money for more Clean Water Montgomery grant program. And the Green Bank's going to get $15.8 million. It's a little bit less. Revenues are down. Our budget's really constrained, and they still have some money in their budget, so it should allow them to put out about as much as they did this year anyway, maybe a little bit more. Workforce and economic development, $2.5 million into WorkSource Montgomery, $580,000 for BioHub, which we worked with the state Maryland Tech Council to put this hub together. So we're excited about that. And we continue the Summer Rise program, which I think is a really good program. Many of you worked with Summer Rise students. It's actually a nice thing to do, and it gives kids a sense of what government's about in a good way. And so I think it's a pretty good thing. And I do want to say, I don't know if folks from WorkSource are here, but Anthony Featherstone has turned that organization around from what it was when I came into office, which was basically useless and ineffective, and has turned it into a truly effective program that reaches residents and provides training. It just doesn't say, I'll get you a minimum wage job. It tries to upskill people so they can get better jobs. So I just want to call them out because they do amazing work for Montgomery County. And we continue with our innovation and business growth. We've got $5.3 million for Montgomery County's Economic Development Corporation. I love the direction they're taking and the leadership there. And I think we're going to see more opportunities for economic development. And $4.6 million for an incubator program to incubate new companies in Montgomery County. We continue to do foreign travel. I'm taking off tomorrow for Taiwan for a week. We go to the Smart Cities Conference, but we're also going to meet with universities and with biotech and tech companies. Our goal is to try to bring people back to Montgomery County so they can expand their businesses here. We're very careful. We do not say we want your company to leave Taiwan. We talk about expanding an operation, having a subsidiary in the United States. We tell the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Indians the same thing. We're not looking to take your companies out of your country. That's colonialism. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. The thing has to be a two-way relationship. And we bring people with us who are Montgomery County business people with that cultural background, that they come and talk about opportunities for them to expand overseas as well. So we're trying to make this a two-way street. But if Montgomery County is going to grow, and if we're going to have any effect in getting a less reliance on residential tax base, we have got to grow a commercial tax base. So where there are opportunities for companies to come here, we need to talk to them about that. Rabia and I had a really interesting conversation with a very large home construction, prefab home construction company in the United States. And we brought in the Assistant Secretary of Commerce to talk about would the state be willing to fund the factory here in Montgomery County, which could produce a ton of affordable housing. Those add a lot of jobs. So those are the things we're looking to do. And how do we bring jobs here? And how at the same time can some of those jobs help us with either our immediate needs, but particularly with our growth needs? Next, other county government enhancements, more funds for the libraries. We understand the consternation about the shrinkage of the World Languages collection, so we've put that back in there. We have free fitness passes for the County Recreation Center centers. That's a very popular program. It was the right thing to do, and I love the fact that it's free in Montgomery County. We've enhanced cybersecurity efforts in our AI tools. The world's a scary place, and our computers are going to always be vulnerable. Right now there's no way to lock anything with absolute certainty that nobody gets in. So people try to run ahead of the people who try to break the systems, and I think we're going to be doing that for a long time to come. We have additional funds for the Office of Grants Management to get them necessary legal staff, and I put money in for the Office of the People's Counsel. Again, I think it's a shame that we don't have resources to support communities. Developers have the money to pay millions of dollars for their lawyers to convince people to do what they want, and we can't even get decent advice to neighborhoods in Montgomery County who are up against people whose sole goal is how much money can I make in your neighborhood rather than what's the quality of life in your neighborhood. So I'm trying to provide a little bit of balance here. And outside agencies, Montgomery College, fully funded. Maryland National Park and Planning Commission gets kind of the same increase that the county government's getting, so they didn't get everything they wanted. We didn't get everything we wanted, so we kept that equal, and we're increasing the payments to municipalities because of our agreement by $726,000. And this has resolved a long-standing issue with municipalities who were not being treated properly. And community partners, 3% inflationary adjustments for our nonprofit contracts. I know that the state may not be doing the same thing. I've heard that their contribution is not going to be there this year for people, but we're maintaining our 3%. We've got continue to fund $10.8 million in grants. Nonprofit technical assistance is in the budget, nonprofit incubators in the budget, and $3 million for cost sharing grants and $1 million for arts facilities, and $2 million for other cost sharing. So there's still money for arts. We have not walked away from the arts in this county. And that is it. So wow. So I'm happy to take any questions from people. Any of you in the departments or anybody else who's a spectator here, or any of the press people. Yeah.
I have an easy question and then a number question. I wanted to clarify on the drone as first responder. Oh, thank you. I wanted to clarify for the drone as first responder program. We're getting one new drone. And could you talk a little bit about why Germantown? I think one drone had previously been Gaithersburg / Germantown.
It's the range of the drone.
Okay.
And so the one drone can't cover all of Gaithersburg and all of Germantown. So this will allow us to have drone space so the Germantown area and the Gaithersburg area are fully covered. And I am going to try to get a second drone in there because we need one in White Oak, and I'm hoping we can get that in.
Do you think that would be in this?
I'm going to try to get it in this budget when we see what comes back from the state.
Gotcha. Can I ask my second question now?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, I know you talked about with the tax increase that you're expecting that with what the president will do, that there will be decreased taxes on that level. There's still a lot, like I know we're all following, like federal workers were laid off. There was that case that could come back. I guess in our particular jurisdiction where so many federal workers are affected and people that have other businesses that are affected, I guess my question is how you're going to sell this tax increase, because I think a lot of people aren't going to be, people in general aren't fans of tax increases, but especially right now.
I think we've got a kind of fundamental question we've got to address. I mean, first place, not everybody's going to get laid off. We are less dependent in some sense than some other jurisdictions are. Some will find jobs and some won't, and if they don't, they're going to probably have to make other decisions about where they work. I don't picture people. It's going to be a real struggle for people to hold on to their houses if people aren't working. That's a real thing. If you're in a double federal income household and both of you lose your jobs, that's going to be stunningly challenging for people to maintain. But most of us aren't going to be affected by that directly. Our incomes are pretty much staying the same, if not going up. The county had a really, healthy year again. There's a lot of reason to believe there's still a lot of health in the economy. I'm concerned about going in the opposite direction and starting to walk away from things. If you don't do this, do you cut the school system more? Do you not provide the teachers? If I decided to fund the teachers and the full county budget and then had to cut, $56 million out of everything else, whose ox get scored? I think we kind of have an obligation to maintain civilization in a time when things are very, very uncertain, and if everybody else retreats, in some ways, the federal government retreat and the state's decisions might be a good time for the county to raise taxes, because we could actually take advantage of that money and do with it what we think we need to do with it. As I said earlier, not be dependent on the restrictions and regulations, but have a much more direct ability to get the money we need and put it into effect. We've been asking for this dual tax system for capital projects that involve transportation. That bill just passed the House. We're hoping it has the same fate in the Senate. That would give us the ability to tax residents and commercial property differently. And if we could do that, then we could lower the burden. And that's what Virginia did, and that's what D.C. did. Having this, everybody has to pay the same, means that anytime we want to do something, we have to hammer homeowners, even for projects that are primarily benefiting developers. We're making investments in things that they will profit from, and the value of their property will grow, but people who will not benefit are paying half the bill, actually paying more than half the bill. So I very much would like to get to the point that Virginia is, where they can have a higher commercial rate and a lower residential rate. And that's why we're doing this with the tax credit on homeowners, so that they're not going to see the full 3.5 cents. They'll see 3.5 minus the higher ITOC. So we're trying to make this as fair as possible. It could be made fair, but like I said, I think it would be wrong for the county to walk away from things, because I think all you would do is exacerbate all the social programs that we face here. All the problems that we're dealing with they would not stabilize.
Do you think the council will have your back on that? Because this is obviously a lot lower than what you proposed in 2022, but they were not a fan of that tax increase then.
Well, had my last tax increase passed, we wouldn't be in this mess today. You know, I tried to get it because, you know, the school system needs back then were greater. The council chose to ask the school system to spend money that wasn't in the budget, one-time money, federal money, for things that are ongoing costs. And that put us in a situation, like as it was last year, to go back in and cover things that they knew were going to be ongoing costs and chose to fund it with one-time money. If we had raised the taxes, we would be in a different situation. The taxes would still be higher, but we wouldn't be facing yet another large increase. My goal then was to try to get this over with and put us in a better position going forward. But we got to get there. If we don't fund these teacher positions, you can talk with the superintendent or any teacher about what's happening in classrooms. If we don't do this, the most valuable asset this county has is its schools. You cannot afford to lose that.
Thanks. I'll let somebody else ask something.
Anybody else?
Hi, County Exec. I wanted to know why you decided, of all the options that you had to raise revenue, why the property taxes and why in this way where it's sort of like a progressive thing, kind of reverse engineered with the tax credit. I thought that was interesting.
Because unfortunately, in the state of Maryland, Montgomery County has almost no ways to raise money. It's a real problem. We can't have a sales tax. Virginia, part of their sales tax, was it a penny and a half in Fairfax? 1.7 cents in Virginia on the food has a sales tax that goes to Fairfax County. The rest of it, we have none of that. I can't put a sales tax here. So the state has constrained the ability of counties to raise money. This is why the Republicans in MACO supported the tax bill that I'm supporting, which allows separate taxes on commercial property, because nobody wants to be in a situation of every time you need to do something, going to all the residents, when all the residents know darn well that this money is going to go build something that benefits the ability to build up downtown Bethesda. It's great to make those investments. I'm happy to make those investments, but the residents are not very happy about having those investments being financed by them, and this is a more equitable way to do it. And since Virginia's been successful and businesses are not running away from Fairfax, where the taxes in Tyson's Corner are going to be $1.57, ours are $1.04, parenthetically, they're not running away, so apparently it's a very successful approach to it. So I'm trying to model what we can do with our limited authority on what's successful in the people everybody envies.
And do you have any insight into how this budget is going to change by the time the council votes?
Look, our revenue enhancements could be 0 or up to $75 million. Our cost hammers could be 22 million, 42 million, or up to 60 million or so. I have no idea. And none of these issues have been resolved by all three chambers, by the governor and both chambers. The House has, I think, passed something. The House is, so one of the things the school system adjusted for was in the blueprint, they had shifted costs to the county that were supposed to be state costs. So the House put it back into the state budget, but the Senate hasn't done that. And so we don't know what to count, which is why we've told people we'll come back a week after the session ends when we know clearly how much money we have and how much additional costs we have, and then we'll rebalance things. The whole tax thing could disappear if we get $75 million and don't wind up with $60 million in costs to go with it.
Is this budget made assuming like status quo at the state?
No, this budget was made already recognizing there were going to be changes at the state. We're sure that I'm pretty sure they're going to land one tranche of the pension money on us. They don't have to. The Senate could say no, or the House could say no, but that's one of the things that one of the committees went back and doubled the number they were going to assign to us. So we'll see what happens. But we've got time. But, you know, the basic message is we've got enough resources that we can not do anything drastic and not make any drastic cuts and still get the things done we need to get done. We just need to know in 3 weeks what exactly those resources are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're good. Thank you all.
Did you know there are more than 10,000 county government phone numbers? But there's only one number you need to remember for non-emergency calls, 311.